Welcome to this update video, in which we are building our own welding table as we will need it for future projects and take you a little bit into the planning phase. As well, we are building a lot of racks for our young plants, not just build them but also place them. And we do some much needed maintenance in the workshop. And we started the last project on a new greenhouse for at least the winter season. There might be coming something more this year. A process that we hardly show in our videos is how we plan and stage all our projects and what kind of time goes into it, or also ideas that we put into it on the process. This is rather normal. Either we sit down with a coffee or something else and make up our thoughts of how it should look and what we want to do. Rarely we do it without a plan. May it be just a fast sketch that we did on paper or digital, or a real model in 3D that we do. We have a lot of this plywood as leftovers. We demolished the parts of the car build out which were built from this and reused those in many projects, as it was quite a big build. This is a very durable material, so it suits very much the corpus of our new welding table. And we usually start the same way when we do something like this. We use our big table saw to cut everything into the right size and also make sure that it's perpendicular, all the sides to each other, which this saw is really a blast to use. Next, you can see us putting together the box, basically, which will host the welding equipment and also other parts that we need for welding. The middle plate is a little bit smaller, which is intentionally so that there's better access to all the tools. We then use those rollers, I hope it's the correct term, for this cupboard. The idea why they're so heavy duty and big is that if we want to, we could roll them out into the grass as well, so that we can weld outside. And there you go, the substructure is already finished and now has to be firmly tested for the TÜV.
Ich bin so froh, dass die Kamera läuft.
Next we built this drawer, which is a wild combination of woods, or at least the plate is a wild combination of woods which we had been laying around. It's oak and other parts that we just glued together a couple of weeks ago. This will hold our angle grinder and all the extra welding equipment, especially smaller stuff that easily gets lost. So that's why we want to store it in a dedicated space so it doesn't fall off or fall out. We ordered in a welding plate kit, which was really nice to put it together. It had grooves and cuts in it where everything fit just like a glove basically. You just needed to weld it together, which is a little bit of a hard task as I'm not particularly good yet at doing it. But it will hold, at least till now it is holding up pretty much. As mentioned, I'm not a good welder, so I underestimated the warp that those steel plates would pick up when you heat them at one point, although I've seen multiple YouTube videos where they warn you not to heat one point up too much. I was able to do so, so we need a lot of clamps to put everything into place again, that it fits snug, and this is the outcome, what it looks like now. I think it's pretty okay for our skill set. The biggest of our winter projects is the rack for our young plants. This is very much needed as we will not use the tables which we have used last year again, as they are not too comfortable to use. They use up way too much space, and we want to discontinue the way that we have worked with them last year and use it a little bit different. Therefore, we're using racks. They have proven to be very nice last year, and we need a lot of them, so we have to build 5. In one of the formal videos, you have seen me doing the rough cut on those large amounts of timber, which we need for this. So there's going to be the long parts and the shorter parts for the frames of the rack. And I had to plane and thickness all of them, and I used the table saw to cut away a little bit of the strength of the beam, as I didn't want to lose that much in the thicknesser or the planer, so I pre-cut them. And after a good day of work, I had all the smaller cross beams cut to the particular size, planed and cut them, and the longer beams which stand vertical had to be planed or thicknessed, but that was done in the next step already. Here I'm starting to cut the grooves into the longer beams, which will be a half overlapping joint. With the smaller table saw, I created a little bit of a jig for the smaller cross beams. I know it looks very junky, but it does the job, and I had it together very fast. With the bigger table saw, I already made a cut which gives the depth of the joint, and with the smaller saw I just had to cut out this part, which is just the other part of the joint which I have to get rid of, and that was rather fast, beside of the jig sometimes getting stuck a little bit, but yeah, for what I needed it was fine and fast enough. As mentioned earlier, I have used a different approach on the long standing beams. For the half overlapping joint, I just used the table saw to make 2 bordering cuts, so to say, and then used the chisel to get the central part out, which turned out was really fast and way faster than cutting them all the time or using a lot of cuts and the chisel, which was just possible due to the grain orientation. We worked along, 2 of us, and we were super fast doing it, so I think in underneath an hour we were able to manage to cut out all of them, all of those joints, and later on I will use a router to clean them up. Here you can see me work with the router, planing out those grooves. Although it took some time to set it up and then also to router each individual groove, it was way faster than making a lot of small cuts and then using a chisel to make it perfectly flat. So we saved a lot of time, although this took some time to set up and then to basically route. While I was doing the router work, Kato took all the cross beams and pre-drilled them and countersank them. So each individual cross beam needs 2 holes at each end where the overlapping joinery is. You could do without it, but we decided as we use extending glue that we want to do it with the screw so it holds together tighter, and we can fasten or loose the clamps when we put together the whole frame. So this was quite an intensive workshop day, and Kata went nuts on the wood, and I went crazy with the router, and we worked through to get everything done for the glue up. And after we cleaned up the workshop and everything else was prepped, and we had our pre-glue up talk that we know what to do and what is where, and if we have everything together, we started with the glue up of all those frames which we have to do. You can see now the process that we have here. We have 4 cross beams with 2 horizontal or vertical beams, and we first put them together with the clamps, then measure the diagonal of the whole structure, and then if the diagonal was right, we screwed it together. We hardly had to modify the frame in any way for the diagonal, as it usually was fitting, and I measured it when we started it before glue up and after the glue up when the glue dried out, and we were hardly ever off more than 1 millimeter. Just in very rare cases it was more, and for the purpose it has for us, that was totally fine. Those are the planting tables I talked about before, so we don't use them in this way or this configuration anymore, as they have been taking up way too much space. Also, we ain't gonna use those lights. We're gonna sell them on the second-hand market, as they will be still very good to use, but for our application they are way too strong. This is the rack which we built last year, and it worked out pretty well. Beside of one slight modification which we had to do, the levels were a little bit too low or too much in the middle, so to say. And we modified this a little bit to have it better balanced for our use case here. We already used that in the greenhouse for the salad plants, which we had started in fall and planted in start of winter. And it worked out pretty well, so that's why we're using it, or the same design, for all the other racks. And now off to a lovely montage of us building up all the now 6 racks with the old one that we will hopefully fill with a lot of life and young plants.
Selma, hast du schon die Selma vorgezogen? Und betonkaros im Haus. In der Sonne Soro Lungo de Bianco, Hokkaido, Schleswiger Schnee. Und Rindale Karotten, die kommen nie. Nach jedem zweiten Tag, da muss man Selma, Selma. Jetzt ist Sport. Scheiß auf Selma. Aber weißt du was, da können wir Buschbohnen rein. Kuhbeton sind unsere Lieblingssorten und die sind nicht so faserig und sie sind schön grün und man bricht sie das Kreuz, wenn man sie ernten tut. Okay, dann machen wir das so.
And also in our new greenhouse, we built 2 of those racks. We had the white colored one from last year, which we put upstairs. And I wanted to use the new ones in here, as we had to adjust the beams for them as well, as those beams have to be shorter, the horizontal beams which connect the frames. So they have to be shorter, as there is not so much space in here for those big racks. It's just 2 racks, and they share the space in the middle of with the middle beam. You can see they will share the space then from there. One of the things that should have been done quite some time ago is taking care about those racks of tools which I have in our workshop. I placed them, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, but I didn't do a particularly good job, as I was in a hurry, which usually happens when I do something too fast. And this one little beam across the wall that you can see there was not really load bearing anymore. Of the 4 screws that we had in there, just 2 of them were still holding on, and those 2 screws were already bending. So we used bigger screws, better positioning, and also some better boards to keep them mounted to the wall. Also, we as mentioned, I sorted through all the tools that I haven't been using in the last 3 years. I put away into a box, and all those tools which already have been put into a box 3 years ago, we started to let go of them. The only problem is, now that everything is neat and nice, you can see how bad of a job I did when I adjusted those bands which you use for the hardware which you use for putting in the doors. So I will have to adjust the hardware now drastically to make the doors look like they're on the same level, which you could, but I never choose to do so, as they were so crooked anyway. And one of the last projects for this winter, or the last winter project, so to say, is the modification of our greenhouse. It already had a lot of rainwater and drip water from the melting snow coming through those overlapping joints from those boards, and I didn't want that to continue, as it increases the rot of the wood, and that's something I really don't want to have with this greenhouse. So we got rid of the joints that we had between the boards now, and put in the proper windows, which I will build quite some time ago. They will become full functioning windows in the future time, as they will get some hardware which allows you to open them from the inside. For the other big windowish boards, we had made some small wooden stripes with a groove in them, so they fit or press fit into them. So the moment that we screw in those stripes from the inside, those boards will be pressed onto the beams and make for a tight seal.
Ich grüße. Ich bin Mickey Maus. Wo werden und schleifen?